What's the price of...
The canals of Salford were once the preserve of industry, but nowadays people are choosing to make them their home.
What attracted you to living on the water?
Ultimately, it's about the freedom, I think, and it's about the closeness to the elements. You know, hearing the rain bounce on the roof, and you get really weird sort of things going on with it. It's like the wind comes rushing up, and I know the river's going that way, and everybody knows the river's going that way, but the waves are going that way, you know, and it's just, that's Mother Nature going, ah, look what I can do. You know, it's just fascinating.
Is this for you, is this a form of escapism, or do you just...
This is definitely a form of escapism.
Okay.
Definitely, and it's definitely a form of slowing down as well. You know, I have no choice but to live a simpler life. It's good for the soul. Well, it's good for my soul anyway,
Yeah.
you know.
Do you think that's maybe contributed to by the fact that you're kind of getting a little bit older? Because I know as I've entered my 40s, the closer I get to the inevitable, yeah. I think the closer I've become to God, and the more my faith as a result of that has expanded. Would you say that?
I think you're probably right. Yeah, it's... I think we've got youth out of the way, and we're starting to question where we've come from and what it's all about a lot more, you know. That's certainly my case anyway. I'm looking for some answers now.
Yeah.
It's not so much all about having a load of fun now. I want to know where did it all come from and why, and what are we doing here?
But Robert doesn't just live on the water, he also works as head chef at a riverside pub in Salford.
It was called the Marcaddy after a famous boatman who used to dive in the river and rescue people. Completely selfless bloke. He must have been completely bonkers, because back in those days, in the 1850s, the river was just a sewer. He was awarded the Albert Medal, which is like the equivalent of the Victoria Cross. Rescued over 60 people. They finally killed him. There was a Whit Monday parade going through Salford, and a young lad had fallen in the river. He was 50 at the time. He's gone in, ruined his suit, ruined his watch, lost his money, but managed to pull the little kid out. A year later he was dead from consumption, and they reckon that was the day that he got the disease that killed him. But he always said out of all the rescues he'd done, that was the most important one. It's the sheer sort of willingness to put somebody else first, without question. You know, from being a very young man, he did his first rescue when he was 11 years old. It's just somebody's in trouble, nobody else wants to go into that mess, well, I'll do it. You know, and that's just selfless, isn't it? That's just a wonderful thing, you know.
There aren't many of those around these days.
If we were all like that, the world would be a better place, wouldn't it?
Journalist Carmel Thomason moved to the regenerated Salford Quays 7 years ago.
I love it here. I feel really at home and relaxed, and it's quite nice to think about my family connections and being here, because my granddad worked here and my great-granddad worked here, which I didn't know at the time when I moved.
What exactly did your great-grandfather do
Yeah, then my great-grandfather, he used to carry the timbers and work on the dock, so my mum would be she told me that she'd have to take the big splinters out of her shoulders, and then my granddad used to work on the railways.
Well, my great-great-grandfather, many years ago, helped to dig out the Manchester Ship Canal, and I remember my great-grandmother talking very fondly about the memories of that, and him coming home caked in mud and having a nice warm cup of tea when he got in. Do you think things like that give us a nice connection with history?
I do. I think it's lovely, and I think my granddad would be really pleased that I'm living here now as it is. But I think at the time he would be completely shocked that a woman would even come to the docks.
And do you think that's one of the things that gave you that connection with water and wanting to be surrounded in water?
Actually, water's got a special significance for me, and that's why I wanted to live here.
And that significance was dramatically revealed to Carmel on a pilgrimage to the healing waters of Lourdes in France, at a time when she was questioning her relationship with God.
I'd never been on pilgrimage before. I queued for about 3 hours, and then when we got in there, you take your clothes off so you're completely naked, but it's modest because you're covered with a shroud, and then you go in, it's like a huge big bath or a hot tub area, except it's not hot, it's freezing cold, and you walk in there and then you're dunked underneath. And I just stood there and felt the most overwhelming sense of love that I couldn't explain, and I'd never experienced it before, and I could only say that it was of God. It made a huge difference to my faith after I came back from Lourdes, insofar as I want to live my life for God rather than trying to tell God how I want my life to be. I think there's lots of different kinds of miracles and there's lots of different kinds of healing, and I think that there's a lot of healing that does go on in Lourdes, and I feel that I experienced a part of that.